Well, let's get some reaction to this breaking news now. Professor Tshepo Madlingozi is a commissioner at the South African Commission of Human Rights, one of the organizations which has been supporting Caster Semenya and was able to intervene in the European Court for Human Rights as a third party, as what we would call here a friend of the court. Commissioner, good morning to you. I do appreciate the time. How important is this ruling in Caster Semenya's favour?
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your viewers. This ruling is truly important for at least three reasons. Number one, it affirms that human rights are universally applicable. So a South African athlete who competes internationally can seek remedies in an international court. But number two, it affirms that sports people are ultimately human beings, and therefore they cannot contract out of their rights, and therefore that even though she had agreed to be bound to the regulations of the World Athletics and also to subject herself to the arbitration court, all of that are always subject to judicial review. But number three, it confirms that the rights of intersex people and people with naturally occurring testosterone, they also have the right to compete, and they should not subject themselves to unnecessary medical procedure.
I mean, in a way, to demand that somebody take medication to change what they are naturally was always going to be problematic. I mean, that's one of the big fundamental issues in this case.
Very fundamental in the context that, all evidence that is out there, does not convincingly confirm that this, number one, these drugs work, that they will actually do what they said they will do. But number two, where there's no evidence that, their side effects are not too burdensome. So we are talking about a medical procedure that is unnecessary, whose side effects are not proven, but ultimately who will lead to the discrimination of people who are born in a certain way.
The other issue, as I understand it, and there are many issues here, Professor, you'll know them better than I do, but one of the issues was that World Athletics basically changed its regulations only for events in which Caster Semenya was competing, the 1,500 metres and the mile. I mean, that must surely have been a weakness in their case. It really looked like they were just targeting her.
That's what the European Court found this morning, that the Federal Supreme Court in Switzerland had to really look at this to say, was this not a case of discrimination? Was this not a case of an arbitrary rule? And the Federal Court failed to do that, failed to properly interrogate whether there was discrimination in this case, whether it was targeted. Of course, Stephen, the other context here is the imbalance between a elite athlete, Caster Semenya, and a very powerful World Athletics body, and the fact that the Federal Supreme Court failed to affirm her rights was found to be full in violation of the European Convention of Human Rights.
This is one of those judgments. I've only seen the media summary. It's 5 pages. I presume that there's a much longer judgment to it, which I'm sure you haven't had time to go through yet, Prof. But I would imagine that this is going to set a precedent for how athletes, but possibly also individuals across Europe, are actually treated.
Yes, it will. It will confirm, number one, that although sports bodies are private actors, although they enter into a private relationship with athletes, that doesn't mean that human rights will not be applicable. That's number one. Number two, it will confirm that state parties to the European Convention on Human Rights, to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights in our case, that the state still retain an obligation to exercise review of all those private actors. The case that has been made by private sports bodies has been that, look, this is a private relationship and that people have entered into this private relationship voluntarily. But we know that it's not voluntary. We know that there is a structural imbalance between the parties.
It's easy to conflate a number of issues. Now, in the United States and some other parts of the West, there's this massive political fight over people who often refer to themselves as transgender. So they are seen to have been born in one way and then change or decide that actually they will not be identified like that. As I understand it, and Professor, I'm looking for your guidance here, Caster Semenya's case is not about that at all. She was born the way she was born, and what World Athletics, as I understand it, was saying, to compete, you have to change yourself. Am I correct? These are different things that people can get confused by?
Yes, we need to make a distinction between transgender persons, people who don't adhere to the notion of binary in terms of female and male, and the second condition or status, or a biology called intersex, and also a condition where people are born with naturally occurring certain hormones. In this case, naturally, occurring testosterone, which leads to muscle mass and things like that. Those are two different things. One, transgender, as you say, is about transcending the notion of binary, sex characteristics and identities. But this one is a biological condition where people are born in a certain way, and to try to impose and to try to change those people through medically unnecessary procedures is not only unlawful, but it's morally repugnant.